Back on Wharerah here. I'm just getting ready to install the intake. I've had the engine in place and then we kind of marked where it was going to be. It's going to have to be a little bit different. So I'm going to drill a small pilot hole. I want to make sure that I'm between the edge of the garboard and the keelson. And I'm going to have to make a flanged intake. So I want to make sure that I've got it in between, so it's going to land on the flat of the keel, especially being glass on the bottom. So I'm drilling a small pilot hole, and then I'll just go underneath the boat. Underneath the boat, that was a pretty good guess. So that's the pilot. So I think that's a safe spot. I can put a 1/4-inch pipe flange in there. Originally, it was just a pipe nipple that was threaded into the wood. It's not going to work in this case because I want to make sure that there's no raw edges on the glass here. I want to make a flanged intake. So I'm going to get a piece of 1/4-inch pipe and make something up here. This is the basic concept of what I want to make. This was what they used in Gervets with a St. Lawrence engine. I like the little scoop here because when the boat's underway, it's forcing the water up. If it's just flat, going back to the Bernoulli principle, it's actually going to be working against the pump, the water flowing past there. So having a little tit on the end is nice. I would use this. Unfortunately, it's 3/8 pipe, and what I need is 1/4-inch pipe to match the engine. So I'm going to have to scrounge around some bits here and see what I can make up. I've got a 1/4-inch pipe nipple in the lathe here. I've got a die. Pipe threads are tapered, so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make this a straight thread so I can push this part through the keel. I'll silver solder a flange on here after I've got it threaded, but then I can make up a nut to thread down onto the thing. But pipe threads are tapered, so they're designed so they go on so far and tighten. I'm thinking if I can just run this die a little further down, it will create a straight thread, and then I can make a nut that will run on it. I know there is a thread called NTPS, which is National Pipe Thread Straight. 1/4-inch always refers to the inside diameter of the pipe thread. It's 18 threads per inch. So I'm just going to make up this threaded part. Well, it turns out my first attempt to make a straight thread on the 1/4-inch pipe isn't going to work. It was just too much friction on the die. The tapered die did not like to do a continuous running thread. I don't have an NTPS straight pipe die, which is 1/4-inch by 18 threads per inch. But what I do have is a piece of this is about 5/8. I think I had this left over from when I made a priming pump. Anyway, that's a very fine thread, but what I do have is I have a 5/8 18 fine thread die, so I can thread this, so I can make up a nut. I have the matching tap to make the nut. I can make a nut to go on the inside of the keel, and this nipple here I can turn down and just silver solder it in there after I figure out how far it's sticking up through the keel. So I just need enough to get the rubber hose on, so I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to just cut these threads on this, and then I'll make the flange to go against the keel. Looks like I made a pretty good guess on the distance between the keelson and the edge of the garboard here. So there'll be just enough room for a flange. I'm going to just drill that out to 5/8, and then I'll make a little plate to keep the nipple from pulling through. The idea will be I'll push the flange nipple up against the keel and then tighten the nut on the inside. Okay, I've wound up making both of them because it's just as easy to make two as one. Got all the tools out, and might as well make both rather than dragging everything out all again. Last thing I'm going to do is, I was just thinking, when I tighten those nuts down, it'd be nice to have a washer under them. So I'm just going to make a washer under this out of this brass scrap, or two washers. There are the two keel fittings. This one is the intake. I've just made a little bit of a recess at the front so it'll act like a scoop for the intake. While I was at it, I made the one that'll be for the exhaust. That won't get fitted till later, but I just thought I'd make them both at once. There's the intake installed into the keel, just beside the keelson, with a little bit of a flange at the back. Now I'm just tighten up the nut on the inside and start lining up the engine. Okay, I've got the rubber hose installed onto the keel. It's almost impossible to do after the engine is in. I've also, Paul brought down some hose clamps, gear type hose clamps. It's important, if you buy the cheaper stainless hose clamps, they have a regular steel screw, and the screw rusts out after a while and can cause some issues. I seem to remember the engine was a little bit too low, so I'm going to put two of these shims that I've made up. And Paul was down last week and cleaned up the engine. And while he was at it, he took the flywheel off and everything else. It's super easy to lift and put in and out. So I'm going to hook it up to the coupling and check the alignment. This is going to be a tedious process, but anyway, while I've got it, I've also added the starter drum on there with the fiber washer in front of the drum, and the gear with a fiber washer behind the gear, which will go between the bridge and that's the trickiest part, is setting up the bridge and the pulley part. Anyway, first thing to do is get the alignment right, so I know where the engine's going to go before I fit the bridge to it. I've been messing around with the alignment here. I've got a lot of these shims I've been sliding under. I made some out of some 062 brass stock, and I've also got some thinner copper ones. Anyway, the final test is I have the coupling tightened up. Now the cup for the stuffing box here, it just slips in there very nicely without any effort. So that's about where it is, but I did notice the starter drum is rubbing on the one side, so I'm going to have to separate the coupling and just move it over, and I'll just make a little clearance with a rasp It's always amazing in one of these boats when the starter cable comes off. It's not really good unless you have to take the whole thing apart to reinstall the cable. Somehow when the cable wants to come off, it will always find a way to get off past the drum, but as far as fishing it back on, it's always tight. I know on a twin it's usually pretty tight to the rib. But anyway, I'm pretty happy with the alignment. The other thing I did is as I was putting the shims in, I tightened one side and made sure there was no wiggle on the other side, just to make sure that I wasn't introducing a twist onto the crankcase, because on a light engine like this, I think it's pretty easy to twist the crankcase. So on this shim here, I made sure that when I tightened the starboard side at the front, that this did not wiggle at all. So it was equally bearing. Kind of like a chair, you want all four legs to be making contact. You don't want to be making contact with three and then tightening up the short leg, because that'll twist the crankcase. So I guess it's just a matter of making a little clearance for that starter drum, and then I'm going to get on with the installing the gas tank, running the gas line, and on to some other things. On these Dispro engines, a lot of times there is no pilot on the coupling, so the coupling can be a little off center from or the prop shaft coupling can be a little off from the engine coupling. I've just got a dial indicator hooked on here, and I'm just noticing there's about 10 thou variation, so I'm just going to loosen the bolts and then just tap this coupling until I get it so the shaft is running concentric. Once it's running concentric within, or as close as I can get it, then I'll start installing the bridge and the starter mechanism. Yeah, that looks pretty concentric now. Just looking at the old pictures before I took the engine out, appears that there's a drain from the exhaust that goes through the keel. It appears to go just below or just behind where the prop shaft coupling is. So I've made up those flanges, or flanged through hulls. Just going to do a little pilot hole, and I noticed that from the picture it came out at a bit of an angle. I don't know whether I can do that or not, but I'm going to do a little pilot hole to get me close, and I guess I've got to get this hose in and hooked up before I assemble the starter. So I'm just going to do this pilot right now. It's about right. I always hate drilling holes in a new hull. It's a lot of downside risk. We'll do a drill bit under there and see how close I am. I notice I'm not going through the keelson, which is a good thing. Well, I seem to have been pretty lucky with this. It's come out about where I want it to go. I might go, I think it'll work out just fine there. So I'm just going to drill the full-size 5/8 hole and thread the exhaust port in there, or the drain port. I've got the starter drum and the bridge installed here. I'm just looking at a picture here of the boat before I took it apart, so it looks like I'm in pretty close position with the exhaust drain. I've got the muffler on, it's all lined up. It's engaging here, and also Also, when the bridge is or the drum is retracted, it does not bind, which is good. The other thing I did is on the stuffing box here, the outer cone, I put a bit of Sikaflex on that just to keep the inner cone from spinning, which sometimes happens. So I was going to put the flywheel on, but I'm not sure where Paul's put the key. He was here cleaning up the engine the other day, but I'll get that on. And I've also put the gas tank in the front here. There's something wonky going on with the support here. I've got to figure that out. Originally these were a kind of a cram fit, and there was a batten that went in behind the tank, but the tank has been moved back a long time ago, so it's not possible to do that. So I'm pretty happy with that. I think next job is I'm going to get the gas line installed and probably put the floors in.